The creation of a raku tea bowl, the favorite among the practitioners of the tea ceremony. Over 400 years ago, the great master Sen no Rikyu developed this as the ideal shape for a tea bowl, and it is still being made in Kyoto to this day. Many centuries ago, a Japanese artist created this uniquely shaped tea bowl. And now, a contemporary artist infuses the traditional form with the modern spirit, the birth of a micro-universe. The so-called Twilight Tea Bowl, a creation of the 16th century master potter Chojiro, and one of the most famous examples of red rakuware. The scenery, this is how students of the tea ceremony refer to the colors and texture of the outside of the tea bowl. The flaming red, the ingrained tea stains, the hairline fractures on the surface. They go through subtle changes, just like natural scenery. For Shuichi Kato, the tea bowl has a deep significance.
As I hold this bowl in my hands and gaze at it for a while and really get a feel of it, I'm struck by the complexity of its surface texture and color. If I turn it around slowly, I can see an endlessly changing movement. There'll be a smooth passage for a while, and then a slight hesitation, and perhaps later a daring leap. An endless series of changes. This tea bowl embraces all the characteristics of the psychological passage of human nature. We can feel with our senses that it's a summary of all the emotional ups and downs we experience with the passing of time. I'm growing old too, and approaching the twilight of my life. And so, for me too, this is very meaningful. As I reflect back over my life, I somehow feel that everything, all the things I've experienced over the long years, is represented in this tea bowl. To me, this is a visible symbol of my own universe. And this is by no means a simplified version of beauty. The tea bowl stands for all the complex developments of life, yet everything is concentrated within a very small vessel. This unique form was created by the Japanese at a certain period in history, and you won't see it anywhere else.
What kind of concept of beauty was responsible for the creation of this uniquely Japanese tea bowl? The tea ceremony became popular in Japan during the Muromachi period, which spanned the 14th and 16th centuries. But at that time, China was the leading manufacturer of ceramics. Chinese pottery has a very long history, going back as far as 1500 BC. They had already perfected the art of producing fine porcelain as early as the 3rd century AD. In China, during the Ming dynasty, from the mid-14th to the mid-17th century, the production of splendid porcelain flourished in the city of Jingdezhen. The motif is outlined in blue on the white surface, and then finished in brilliant colors. The intricate designs are arranged on the perfectly proportioned piece, which represents the ultimate in porcelainware. Connoisseurs also sought brilliance and a balanced shape for their tea bowls. Here, as near a perfect circle for the rim, which was outlined in gold, a striking contrast to the blue-green of the bowl. the mottled glaze of temoku ware, surrounded by a rainbow of colors. Its splendor is dazzling. This type of tea bowl was treasured in Japan as Chinese ware. During the Muromachi period, from 1336 to 1573, the practitioners of the tea ceremony in Japan liked to stress these aspects of magnificent coloring. But soon a change was to take place in aesthetic taste, which had up until then treasured the symmetry of Chinese ware. It was around the time when the Muromachi military government was overthrown by the powerful warlord Oda Nobunaga in 1573. The Korean Edo-type glazed tea bowl came to be regarded as the most acceptable for the tea ceremony. The Kichizaemon tea bowl is one of the best examples of Korean Edo-type bowls. But myth has it that anyone who touches this tea bowl will be afflicted with tumors. So now it is kept at Daikokuji Temple in Kyoto. The Kichizaemon tea bowl has now been designated a national treasure, but in actual fact, it was originally just an ordinary rice bowl of the kind used every day by people in the Kingdom of Korea. But in Japan, connoisseurs of the tea ceremony cherished this unpretentious tea bowl and felt it was the ultimate expression of beauty. According to Minayoshi Yanagi, a 20th century art critic, the Edo tea bowl came out of its dirty kitchen to a place of honor on the throne. So the tea ceremony was stripped to its bare essentials and entered the world of wabi, or philosophic idealism, which denied all preoccupation with outward appearance. The great 16th century tea master, Sen no Rikyu, perfected the art of wabi-cha. Cha is the Japanese word for tea. He rejected the exotic Chinese ware and embraced wholeheartedly the humble earthenware bowls produced in Japan. He felt these well suited the spirit of wabi-cha. In the second half of the 16th century, the use of these simple tea bowls spread throughout Japan. The aesthetic taste of the connoisseurs of the tea ceremony helped to establish their popularity. Many of them were of irregular shape, rough texture, and uneven color, and there was no trace of the eye-catching. But for this very reason, each person was able to appreciate the tea bowl in his own way, and so its beauty was unlimited. Sen no Rikyu set himself the task of devising the ideal shape for a tea bowl. The result was the Raku tea bowl, and this type has continued to be produced to this day for use in the tea ceremony. The Raku family pottery, which gave birth to the Twilight tea bowl. An unbroken line of successors has continued to create the Raku tea bowl here, ever since its foundation by Chojiro over 400 years ago. The tradition has been passed down from father to son for 15 generations. Kichizaemon studied sculpture at the Tokyo University of Fine Arts and Music, and then for some years in Italy. On his return to Kyoto, he took over the pottery from his father. This clay was discovered by Kichizaimon's great-grandfather at Fushimi, on the outskirts of Kyoto, and then stored for about 80 years. The unique texture of rakuware is achieved by using seasoned clay like this. The potter's wheel plays no part in the making of a raku tea bowl. The clay takes on the form of a tea bowl in the bare hands of the potter. With the potter's wheel, centrifugal force pushes the clay outwards. But the raku tea bowl is made by encouraging the flat piece of clay to move inwards. The curve of the hands is transposed to the clay and gives it shape. Kichizaemon has no image of the finished bowl in his mind before he starts. It's only when he actually takes the clay in his hands that the bowl begins to take shape. Communication between the plain clay and the hands. The eyes watching silent, but intent. The very spirit advocated by Senno Rikyu in his quest for a tea ceremony, totally devoid of the obtrusive.
絵画だけじゃなくて建築でもね、本当はどう出来上がるかっていうことを細かいところまで全部計算っていうか意識して作り上げるものでしょう。でそういうことが芸術的創作だっていう考え方があってね、それと焼き物っていうのはちょっと違うところがあるわけですね。だから始めた時に手をつけた時は全体の形っていうのはどのくらいお考えになるわけ？
本当にこういうような形を作りたいとか、今こういうような形を作りたいとかね、そういうイメージはあるんです。だけどこうしてここをこうしてこういう姿にしようというのはね、作ってる段階で徐々に発見しながら作っていく。
そこが面白いと思うんですね。ですから前の初めに作ったある段階まで作りますね。そうしてその今ある段階までできたところが次にどう手が動くかっていうことに関係してくるでしょ。
自分が手を一つ置くと、そのへこみによってまた自分が触発されてまた形が出来上がる。で自分はどこへ行き着くのか分かんないようなところもあるんですね、逆に自分たちの仕事は。
で最後のところ、そこまではでも積み上げですね。それで積み上げてって最後のところに行くと釜に入れてどういう発色があるか予想はある。
予想はあるんです。それは一つの経験の中から自分が知り得る予想ですね。
もちろん。だけど細かくは分かんない。で出てきた色がいいと思ったらそれを取る。まずいと思ったら捨てる。そうですか。
そこに自分がかけられるかっていう、自分が託せるかって、そこまで全くその自然の予期しない 矛盾を含んだものの中に自分自身を全く託せるか託せないかというところで、焼き物と例えば彫刻あるいは絵画という西洋系のものとはっきり違うところじゃないかなという。
それはそうでしょうね、そういうところが違うと思いますね。
In Europe, fine pottery had its origins in ancient Greece. Scenes from mythology and daily life depicted on red clay. They inspired Keats to write his On a Grecian Urn. But we have to remember that his poem was in praise of the elaborate illustration on the vase, rather than in praise of its fundamental beauty. The emphasis in Europe was on decorated pottery. For centuries, Europeans had regarded ceramics as implements of daily life. But under the influence of Chinaware, they came to appreciate their striking beauty. In the 17th century, the Dutch East India Company imported porcelainware from China and later from Japan. The people of Europe were enthralled by these magnificent objects. Aristocrats vied with each other to build up collections of expensive Oriental porcelain. This collection at Charlottenburg Castle in Germany is one of the finest. Note the perfect circles, geometrically proportioned shapes, and precisely balanced designs on pure white surfaces. This appealed to contemporary European attitudes towards the arts. Reason, here combined with a fascination for the exotic. The technique of producing hard white porcelain was still unknown in 17th century Europe, but the aristocracy were keen to have this ideal type of porcelain made by their own craftsmen. Augustus I of Saxony had a man working full-time at his castle trying to solve the mystery of Oriental porcelain. Johann Friedrich Böttger was an alchemist and used his skills to analyze the contents of the porcelain. He carried out one experiment after another and came up with the ideal combination of different clays. At long last, he was able to produce a very hard porcelain fired at a high temperature. But the piece was brown, a far cry from the smooth white porcelain of the Orient. But success at last in 1709. Böttger used kaolin and fired the sample at 1,300 degrees centigrade. The result was a pure white urn, just like those from the Orient. European porcelain began as imitations of the Chinese and Japanese, but in time it assumed a character of its own. The culture of the Orient was absorbed and adapted to the taste of the West. But at this time, the unique beauty of the simple Japanese tea bowl, with its uneven shape and inconsistent color, had yet to be discovered by Europe.
Now, Western civilization was accustomed to thinking of ceramics as decorative articles to be used in everyday life. So, when they first saw pottery from Asia, by that I mean porcelainware from China, they were struck by the sophisticated techniques of the East. Chinese and Japanese porcelain continued to influence Europe throughout the 17th and 18th centuries. But At that time, no one gave a thought to the simple Japanese tea bowl. What was the reason for this? It wasn't because Europeans didn't appreciate the techniques involved. It was more a case of the aesthetics behind the tea ceremony not being understood. In Europe, the strictly regular shape and gorgeous decoration of Oriental porcelain ware was easily acceptable, but the unadorned tea bowl was a different matter altogether. Connoisseurs of the simple Japanese tea bowl valued it for both its complexity and its understatement. The aesthetics of the tea ceremony evolved in Japan during the 16th and 17th centuries and were a complete antithesis to what had gone before. Nothing less than a complete revolution.
The setting for the tea ceremony helps us to understand the comment of the 19th century art critic Okakura Tenshin. The tea ceremony is a way of achieving something meaningful in this life, which is full of mysteries. Thus, the tea ceremony is life itself, a way of transforming nature into art. The tea bowl is the ultimate symbol of that spirit. Life or nature is projected into the tea bowl. One sign of this is the name given to each individual tea bowl. Just as each of us is given a name at birth and only has one life to live, so too with the tea bowl. Each bowl has its own name because it has its own unique existence in this world. Each tea bowl has its own personality. At times, it is intrinsically connected with a person's life. At others, it finds itself at one with nature, the universe in the palm of the hand. The interplay between Kichizaemon and the clay form in front of him begins again. After the basic shape was formed, the tea bowl was set aside in the drawing room for a few days. Now it is time for the potter's knife. One of the most important parts of a tea bowl is its base stand. This begins to take shape out of the thick clay. As the potter comes to the carving stage, his creative urge becomes even stronger. The pauses between the carving movements of the hand sometimes seem to contradict his will, while at other times they're in complete harmony. And together they progress towards a particular shape. While preserving the rounded effect of the hands, the knife also carves out sharp, straight lines. The suppleness of the hands works in harmony with the hardness of the tools. But even at this stage, Kichizaemon still has no definite image of the glaze he will use or the colors he will aim for. The final shape is decided by the actual movement of drinking the tea, the natural placement of the hands on the tea bowl. Subtle adjustments are now made to achieve just the right weight and the right size when the bowl is held in the hands, and the right texture when it is brought to the mouth. Life is given to the finished shape by the glaze. Pebbles collected by many generations of the family from the upper reaches of the Kamagawa River are used for the glaze in black rakuware. Kichizaemon takes great care in selecting the most suitable pebbles for his tea bowl.
暗い赤紫がかったような水に濡らすとね、水に濡らすと深い赤紫がかったような色をするんですよね。これもね、おそらく何代もいろいろ歴代がこうして酔って残ってきましたからね、だんだんこうそこを探さないといいのが見つからない。まあでもね、こういう自然のものっていうのは意外と逆なこともあって、こんな変な石ダメだろうと思って使ってみると、それが全く面白い変化を生むようなこともありますからね。まあ少しずつだから石の顔を見て一年一年それを勉強していくみたいなもんですね。ああ、こんな顔がいいのかなと思いながらまた別の顔を選んでみたり。
Using clay from Fushimi and pebbles from the Kamagawa River, the creation of the raku tea bowl has been part of the scene in Kyoto for 400 years. The Kamagawa pebbles are crushed and the most suitable pieces are ground to a fine powder. The glazing is done by both Kichizaemon and his wife, a custom handed down through the generations. Kichizaemon takes a good look at the bowl, because its shape is his inspiration for applying the glaze. Each layer of glaze is like a segment of a conversation, and as each comment is added, the tea bowl comes together as an integrated work. The process of applying the glaze and then letting it dry is repeated more than 10 times. As he applies the glaze, Kichizaemon tries to predict how it will run when it is fired.
日本の場合は自然と人間との関係があるから、でどっちも大事なみたいで、というよりも人間化された自然と自然化された人間みたいなものが中心になってるような気がするんですね。で西洋の文化ってギリシャの昔から非常にはっきりした人間中心主義ですね。つまりね、 人間中心主義っていうものはあれは西洋の話だっていうんで、つまんないとも言えないわけね。あれは大変なことでしょ。だから人間中心主義っていうことは現代っていうこととも関わってるわけだ。だからそう簡単に、あれはこちらは日本人でね、で日本の文化の伝統で仕事するんですから、西洋人がどうなのと構わないって、そうでもないと思うんですね。
僕なんかだから逆に彫刻を勉強してきて、今日本の彫刻っていうのはヨーロッパの思考ですよね。ところがね、やっぱり作れなくなっちゃうんですよね。人間に関わって人間の存在、自分っていうのがこうだっていうふうに確固たるものがなくなったっていう、崩れてきたっていうところにまず起因するような気がするんですね。
そうですか。
だから個というものの中に最終的に言えば全体があるし、部分の中に全体があるという、もちろんその逆でもあるんだけども、そういうようなあり方っていうものがこれから先すごく必要になってくるというかね、実際に自分自身必要になってくる。
それは大変現代的なことですね。個性ってものとか自分というのが非常にはっきりしててね、でその立場から周りの何でも自然もね、全てのものを偶然性を排除して、で全てのものをなんていうかな、力ずくでねじ伏せると、ねじ伏せることはできるんだと、ねじ伏せた方がいいと、ねじ伏せることが文明であるという考え方はね、そうなかなかいかないところが出てきた。だからその先はやはり何かコントロールできない、意識的に計算し尽くされない力ずくで生きかねるところ、それから余ったところっていうかな、そういうところがね、運よくでしょうね。幸いにして協力してくれた時、そのいい方角にです、その時なんかできる。
At a time when confidence in humanity and belief in the individual worth of artists are being broken down, some artists strive, despite the difficulties, to achieve new heights in their chosen medium. The American painter Jackson Pollock delved beyond the realm of the conscious will and incorporated the spontaneous in his action paintings. Paint flies from the brush in all directions onto the huge canvas. This is no longer the artist expressing his individuality in a limited space. He is now part of the confusion of a much larger universe. There is a close parallel with the world of the T-bowl. Two o'clock in the morning. Kichizaemon has done as much as he can to create a T-bowl which is a work of art. Now it is out of his hands as he places it into the kiln. The secret of the Raku T-bowl lies in the traditional kiln. Only one bowl at a time can be fired inside the single chamber. As the shape and glaze of each T-bowl is different, great care is taken in the timing, just when the fire is right for that particular bowl. Charcoal made from a certain type of oak is used as fuel. A combination of different charcoals is used to get fine variations in the strength and timing of the fire. In keeping with tradition, the creation of the raku tea bowl itself has always been the work of a single craftsman. But for the firing of the black raku tea bowl, Kichizaemon has the assistance of 10 men, who have also inherited this job from their fathers and grandfathers. Despite long experience and meticulous preparation, there are two elements which defy prediction: fire and draft. The fire in the kiln is never the same from one day to the next. The bellows play an important part in controlling the condition of the kiln. The noise of the draft from the bellows, the weight of the bellows in the hand, the flames reflected on the wall. These are indications of the state of the kiln and a guide to adjusting the strength of the draft. The men stare hard at the fire and learn to distinguish the variations in the sound of the air blowing out of the bellows. And they try as much as possible to get the best possible result from the combination of fire, nature, and chance. The raku tea bowl reveals its complete appearance for the very first time when it is taken out of the kiln and allowed to cool. Each new work has its own texture, its own color, luster, and delicate balance, all coming together to form a universe of its own. It was not until the 20th century that the beauty of the Japanese tea bowl and other ceramic ware was discovered by the British potter Bernard Leach. This was a totally new experience for the world of European art. The quiet beauty of the Japanese tea bowl is at last being recognized the world over.
The aesthetics of the Japanese tea ceremony and the tea bowl itself are probably the farthest from the principles of beauty which have influenced European civilization since the Renaissance. The tea bowl looks as though it's actually rebelling against art. If you look at it from the point of view of the traditional European ideas of beauty, the tea bowl must look not just different, but in fact, well, it must look like anti-art. But if you take the trouble to delve a bit deeper and so widen the boundaries of art, I'm sure that it will then come well within the borders. For the simple reason that the tea bowl is beautiful. The concept of beauty that can't include the tea bowl isn't permanent. It's only by including the tea bowl that you give any meaning to the history of art. Without it, you have something incomplete. If you refuse to accept the tea bowl, then you're setting yourself some severe restrictions. The tea bowl is now being viewed with great interest by people, not just here in Japan, but also around the world. It's beginning to exert an influence in much wider circles, and gradually changing from being the sole possession of the Japanese to that of the whole world.
人間の所有に変わっていくだろうと思います。
An increasing number of artists in the United States and Europe have been inspired by Japanese ceramics. Claude Champi has his kiln on the outskirts of Paris. He tries to feel his way towards a unique expression.
Céramique japonaise au musée Guimet à Paris, j'ai réalisé que la poterie japonaise était la première poterie où on retrouvait un individu et non plus un phénomène de société comme dans la céramique chinoise, par exemple, l'époque Song, que j'aime beaucoup. Les Japonais ont voulu ou su faire parler la matière, parler la terre, parler les pierres. Je trouve que c'est quelque chose qui me paraît hors du temps. C'est pas une question de mode. Je pense que dans 200, dans 500 ans, dans 1000 ans, on aura toujours les mêmes besoins et les mêmes envies.
In the past, Europe was captivated by the magnificence and perfect proportions of Oriental porcelain. But now, the fascination is with the whole universe contained within a tea bowl. Possibly, here lies a consolation for the imperfection of man himself. The Raku family passes down the traditional secrets, including mixing the glaze and firing the tea bowl, from father to son, down through the ages. While every generation learns from the essential spirit of the tea ceremony itself, each individual craftsman functions in his own unique way and makes his contribution to the technique and expression embodied in a tea bowl. When there is a synthesis of dynamics between the craftsman and the elements of nature beyond his control, then we have art. For the artist of the tea bowl, the challenge endures.